Wait, you know what? Honestly, yeah. Yes, that's actually for my podcast. I do that and I use like the first couple of like random conversations before anything happened as like the opening thing. And then I go into the opening and then be like, welcome to the podcast. But I love a little candid moment.
That's so smart,
There
yeah.
will be a lot of candid moments.
This is going to be
When
a
we tried
candid podcast.
when we tried to record the promo, we
My
were
gosh,
both
it's
just like,
hilarious.
wait." To be fair, it was my fault for a lot of that. But
It came
but
Totally
out
fine.
it came out perfect though.
it did come out really well, yeah. Well, your
The
editing
magic of
skills.
editing.
Yes, exactly. For anyone who's going to be watching this on YouTube or on our Substack where we have comments available and people can join for free, you just make an account. This is our first episode of Indie Ink Podcast. Today we are talking about I Can Fix Her with Rae Wilde. This book focuses on two women and a toxic love situation that unfolds very dangerously, very quickly. Johnny spots her ex, Alice, at the local cafe with a vague sense that she's been there before. Though she's still angry about their breakup and Alice's subsequent ghosting, Johnny can't resist the draw of a second shot at their relationship and accepts Alice's invitation back to her apartment. Once there, promises are exchanged, there's talk of wonder and change and dreams made real. But after spending the night together, they face a morning in which Alice is still Alice, Johnny is still Johnny, and the dog has doubled in size. Over the course of a week, increasingly bizarre changes in the world around them force Johnny to consider whether the pair can change just as easily, if they can change at all, or if both her relationship and the bounds of reality are destined to implode. The narrative of I Can Fix Her operates on nightmare logic, putting forth an irresistible tale in which the world, the narrator, and time itself are not to be trusted. It's so true. It's so true. I love this book. So Blake and I read this book over the last month, and I think we both loved it. And we both what I love about books like this is that we both
Mhm.
came away with different opinions and ideas, but also somewhat the same.
Mhm. Yeah, we were messaging about it and and our first difference that we realized is that I am a Johnny hater, that you are an Alice hater. Hater in the
Yes,
best way possible. Like we just
yes,
did not agree with their
yes,
choices. And
yeah,
it is a very divisive thought in it. It's like you almost do pick sides. And I think that one of my favorite things about stories is when the protagonist and antagonist, you can't really tell which one's good and which one's evil, or if there's even a evil and or good, or you know what I mean? And you just relate to the characters in a certain way. And I think that that's one of the things that kind of was done really well in this book is that you relate to this character really, really well. Or one of the two. Like you're gonna find very few people won't find a part of them in these only two characters, which is just amazing, right? There's only two characters.
yeah. It's so there are only two characters. There's one character that comes in only for a very small portion, but with you really just get to know the two characters of Johnny and Alice in this book. And what I love about this book and what I'm going to take away from it is that we should all be checking in on our own cycles, whether
Mhm.
it's toxic or healthy. We should all be reflecting on if making the same choices over and over again is really the best option for us.
Mhm. I agree. It's a very reflective book and it makes you look at how you're living your own life. And even though this book is in reference to a romance, it makes you look at the cycles that you choose in your friendships, the cycle that you choose, even in your family sometimes. It makes you really sit down and look at all of those and say, am I living this the right way? Am I just continuing a cycle over and over and over again? And in continuing that cycle, what am I really doing to myself? And what am I really doing to another person? It is a very mirror experience reading the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you want to read the book as well, I Can Fix Her, and you'll see in this episode as well where Ray talks about it. It's available everywhere that you buy books. I read it in Kindle, and Blake read it on paperback, I believe.
Mhm.
But you can purchase it wherever you want. So this was our very first episode of Indie. This is going to be our very first episode. It's so much fun. I love doing this. I love being able to uplift indie authors and to
Mhm.
share their stories in a way that isn't the quick excerpt or trope that I think social media often talks about. You know, we
Mhm.
really get into it in this episode and talk
Yeah.
about all the nitty-gritty stuff. Um, but yeah, and then we have another guest coming up for next month.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to when you get past our little introductory part to really get to see the nitty-gritty of the book with Rae Wilde. I cannot wait for you guys to experience that. And then for the next episode, so you guys can kind of get prepared, get hopefully you're sitting down and get your phone out to order the book before you listen to this one so you could just while you're listening, you already know it's coming in the mail for you. We are going to do Plucked, which is a novel in verse by Vera West. And I'm not going to give you too much information about that. As my cousin would always say, Google is free. And I also think that sometimes leaving a little mystery leads into getting it. But that is going to be Vera West is going to be the next author, and then the next book is going to be Plucked. It is also another kind of shorter story. So if you're like in a reading rut that some people get into sometimes, especially kind of around the holidays, it's a nice, easy read.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited for it. And so if you guys want to join us so that you can be in conversation with us for the next
Mhm.
episode, then go ahead and pick up the book and read along with us. And we have a Substack as well. So
Mhm.
if you want to get in conversation and talk about all things books, but especially the books that we're reading while we're reading them, you can go ahead
Mhm.
and join our Substack. There will be a link down below in the description where you can click on it and make an account to join us there. We'll be doing this every month. We will have one episode come out.
Mhm. Monthly indie author fun.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And then so without further ado, here is our episode with Rae Wilde. I reached out to Rae because Rae was a part of Pages Against the Patriarchy, and she was just like phenomenal with that on top of everything. And I just love her genre. So, Rae, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit of your writing genre and your books just a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be the very first guest.
Yay.
So I am Rae Wilde, and I tend to write dark queer fiction. So a lot of times that's sapphic horror, but not always, always. I've done some thrillers, some like weird horror, some sexy horror, and generally like a lot of feminine rage type vibes in my work.
I love
Yes.
I love a good feminine rage.
Oh,
Me
me too.
too.
Oh, me too. I love when women are full of faults. I'm like, yes, yes,
Mhm.
we're not always docile and perfect.
No, I think that I write similarly like that. Like I don't want a girl. There's this book. I'm not going to mention the author, and the book is fine. It's really good. But there's this book, and for most of it, she's just like, I don't know these powers. I'm so powerless, and I'm no good. And even after there's so many signs being like, "Bitch, you are amazing," she's just like, "No, I'm not good at." And the book is really good, and I love it. And it kind of gave me a little bit of Sailor Moon vibes. But I just kept yelling at the book, like, "Ma'am."
Yeah. Yeah.
Embrace the power and the awesomeness that is you and that you are. And it's, it's relatable. There are a lot of women who, even though there's signs blinking right in front of them saying, hey, 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 they just don't realize it. It was still a little like,
Yeah, I think I struggle with stuff like that too. Like I think there's almost an idea that being insecure, indecisive and like just like generally lacking confidence are like innately feminine traits. So then like
Mhm.
the antithesis to that conversation is when people start talking about, well, it's such an unlikable female character. And there's no correlation like on a male character's side to that same conversation. And usually when people talk about like an unlikable female character, it's just like a female character who's like kind of selfish or like self-absorbed and like I don't know, but like characters that are sort of also, like, I struggle to resonate with those types of characters, and I'm sure that works for a lot of readers, not to say one's better or worse, just, like, for me personally, I struggle with, like, I'm just so confused on what to do, and, like, like, I just wish if only a man was here, like, I
Yep.
don't know.
No,
Yep.
those drive me literally insane. I will never like, to me, those are more unlikable female characters.
Yeah.
Um, and this is coming from a girl who loved like, I grew up a Disney princess. Could sing you almost every song from almost every Disney movie, but even still, it was like I mean, some of my favorite princesses are like Pocahontas and Merida from Brave and, the ones that are kinda more standing up, Mulan. But, people fall into like that Disney princess mindset that, you have to be saved by a
Mm.
man, which is why I think it's so cool that, you write sapphic. And for those who don't know, because to me, I didn't know what sapphic was like a year ago. It felt like it was just a term that just like appeared out of nowhere. It's like, "This is a sapphic romance," and I was like,
You're
"Ew."
showing your straightness, Blake.
I am well, okay, well, to be clear, I'm a little
That's
queer.
okay.
I'm
Okay.
on the queer spectrum, but I don't keep up
You're
with
spe
I don't keep up with a lot of the trends. But it was, Harley LaRue, and I've followed her heavy because she writes a lot of I'm trying to find a good perfect word for this. There isn't. I'm trying to find it. It's like, ah characters with sexual fluidity, that's the word I wanted. And then she's also coming out with a sapphic romance, and then I was like, "Okay, it's time to look this up," and it was just like, girl on girl, and I was like, "You mean to tell me that this whole time that's what it's like, I felt silly. I
Well,
was
I
this
don't
years
I
old."
don't think you should though, because, sapphic as a term, to me, it's something I see a lot more online,
Mhm,
especially talking about media. And I think it's a really nice word for that because it's a way to sum up like two ladies are interested in each other without getting into the minutia of like, well, are they bisexual? Like all of these more specific labels. And I think
mhm,
it especially makes sense as a way to describe media where you're not necessarily talking about like specifically a sex scene or a romance or you know what I mean? Like,
mhm,
so, but I'm on the same page as you in that like that's not a word I heard a lot like growing up in people
mm-mm.
just talking to each other. I'm aging myself a little, which is fine.
It's okay, I
Um
already aged myself, so
yeah, but definitely you see it a lot online. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that was when I started kind of like not just my author journey, but like my book talk journey, I was very much on a dark romance side. And I've learned that even on book talk, it all depends on what side you're floating on. And luckily, I feel like it's a term that's becoming more and more popular now. And I do think that I think it's a beautiful term because I think that when we talk about girl on girl, people take it and like they pornify it in a way, you know what I mean? And having the term sapphic represents so much more than it's just reading about 2
This
girls getting it
I
on.
have I have a question. We're gonna get in and we're gonna start through this progression, but I have a question for Ray because you post on TikTok a lot. Have you ever looked at your percentages of the genders of people who watch your videos?
Yeah.
What is it?
Um So I don't remember exactly offhand, but it's always been majority women or what
Okay.
TikTok is reading as women.
Yeah.
I think, at most, I want to say maybe 30% male. And even that, I feel like that's potentially skewed by like A couple of times I could tell a link to one of my videos got posted in, like, an incel forum because they just came, like, pouring into the
Sure.
comment
Yeah.
section to, like, say stuff, so that's probably, like, inflating the the men count even
Yeah.
at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is so interesting because I feel like I was reading a few articles before that it's also predominantly women that are reading the MM romances or love
Mhm.
stories or horror or whatever the genre is. So it's so interesting. It's like women are in both of these spaces, um, and yet still in the women's focused spaces or the women loving women spaces, sapphic spaces, there's still a lot of like sexualization that's uh, done in a way that's like derogatory from men. And it's like, but you're not actually reading the books because we know you're not. We know the your demographic isn't reading the books. I just thought that was really interesting. Okay, to start this conversation, Blake and I read "I Can Fix Her" by Rae
Mhm.
Wilde, who is sitting here. Um, I messaged Ray. I didn't tell Blake this. I messaged Ray because I finished the book, I think, like my time at like midnight, on
Mhm.
my Kindle. And I messaged her and I said two things. How dare you? And then I said, oh, what was the second one that I said? I said,
It was an expletive, I'm not sure if we're
oh,
cursing.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I cussed at her and I said beautifully done. Um, so yeah, that was my experience with I Can Fix Her wrapped up.
Saw that on TikTok or
I
Instagram, and
put it on Instagram. Yes,
You
it
yeah,
made me
did?
so happy.
it
I
was
blurred out your name though for,
That's okay, you can
whatever.
put my name wherever.
it was hilarious. I commented, I'm like, "We were just talking about your book."
Yeah,
I think I had a similar kind of experience with it. I was definitely in the beginning like, "Huh." I no lie, I had to go back like 2 or 3 times because I'm like, "Wait, Johnny's not narrating this, but I'm confused," and then I'm just like keep going back and forth, and I was like, "You know what? I feel like it's all gonna come out as I keep
yeah,
reading."
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Should
when it, like, hit the fan, I was like, "Oh, this makes so much sense. I
should
love
we
it."
clarify, are we allowed to do spoilers? Should we not do spoilers? What
I
is
don't care. It's been
Okay,
out since June, so I feel like totally
okay,
fair. Let's go ahead because it's also
okay,
it's a relatively short book, so it's very hard to talk about without any spoilers, so I'm happy to just talk about it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys
Yeah,
should have already read the book.
yeah.
Yes,
Duh.
We told
exactly.
you guys to read it
Thank you.
along with us.
We did. That
Um,
is true.
I do
We gave you
know
plenty of time.
I do know of a few people who were reading it along with us because they were like, "Oh my god, wait! I saw her and I picked up her book after Pages Against the Patriarchy. I'm gonna read this book too." So maybe they'll comment on some of the posts and let us know how they felt about it too. Okay, I highlighted some of my favorite quotes without context from I Can Fix Her. Um, You're too old for crop tops. Johnny wants to tell her. That's a Gen Z thing. I just love that quote. I was just like, this is so random and I just love it. Like that's something that my friends and I or my partner would say to me as well. Like, you're too old for that. Stop.
I died laughing because as a millennial woman, I love crop tops.
Listen, I would absolutely be wearing crop tops if my, pregnancy had not caused the impact that it had to that particular section. So, like,
Mm.
believe me, I'm in no way actually standing in judgment of anyone wearing crop tops. I think
Oh,
they're so
yeah.
cute.
No, I thought it
Um,
Yeah.
was still
Yeah.
it is a very Gen Z thing to do. I'm
It
not
is.
gonna lie.
It is.
yes.
In my
It is.
defense, I'm, like, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-West Indian, so, like, when I go to St. Thomas to visit my family, crop tops are, like, a huge thing there. But
Love
no,
it.
I get people looking at me, even, like, younger people that interact with, they're like, "You're wearing another crop top? Like, you're too old to be doing that." I was like, "Mind your business."
Right.
But no, I died at that part. There were so many parts in this book that was just so ironically funny.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. The humor, I mean, so when I first was talking to Blake about inviting you on the podcast, I was like, go look at her TikTok It is hilarious. Like, she makes the funniest videos, and I love like, you always use negative reviews in your marketing, and they're the funniest thing ever. Yeah,
Thank you.
and then the book, like, showed that same type of humor as well, at least it did to me.
Mhm.
I have another I mean, I have a lot of highlights, but, like, if you have a highlight or something you wanna give, otherwise I can keep going down the list.
Keep going, go right ahead.
Okay. Um, she doesn't ask because she's love struck. Not dumb. How dare you?
Mm,
How
mhm.
dare you? Why would you
I
put that
mean,
in the book? That's really rude. It's really
it's
rude.
funny. The one of the reviews I think that Ray, that you posted recently on social media had someone said, "I never felt more called out in my life." And that's
Yes.
like the perfect quote. I've never felt more called, like, ever in my life.
I'm sorry. I
No,
whenever
no,
I talk about this book, it's kind of like, if this resonates with you and you can relate to it, I'm sorry. If this doesn't resonate to you, you're not gonna like it, and I'm sorry. So basically, I'm just sorry for everyone on the whole spectrum.
blanket
I just
apology,
apologize.
Like an apology.
blanket apology.
Okay. The next quote I have is things change, Alice says, a wrinkle forming in between her eyes. I thought we talked about that. I was so angry. And when that, so obviously, like the story will take a turn and we'll discuss the story fully after the quotes. But
Yeah.
at this point in the story, when that quote comes up, I'm like, Alice, you motherfucking gaslighting bitch. Stop it.
I did
Stop it.
Why
Oh,
did
I was
everybody
so
hate
angry.
Alice? I did not hate Alice. I
I
le
love that you don't hate Alex.
I legitimately
Okay.
didn't hate Alice.
Okay, to be fair, I don't hate Alice with the full scope of it. But the things Alice did were things specifically that I was like, I hate that. Get away from me because I know what that is. Um, and unlike Johnny, I have pattern recognition apparently.
Johnny
But
has pattern recognition. Johnny just
that's true.
ignores
Ignores
pattern
it.
recognition.
Ignores it.
Mhm.
That's true. That's a very good point.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know for me, like, I'll talk more about it, but, like, to me, Johnny was more problematic than Alice was. Alice was who she was, right? Like, I've known a lot of friends that are like that, and I'm always laughing in a corner and just giggling and kicking my feet at, like, the stupid things that they say or do or whatever, and it's like, "You silly little tiny human." But for me, Johnny was the bigger issue because no matter how many times I was like, "Hi, this is who I am. Hi, this is who I am. Hi, this is who I am." Johnny was just like, "No, you can be my perfect little angel if I just take you in clay and shape you." And to me, that is the more problematic thing. But
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
But quotes, continue quotes.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, we'll get into it because Blake and I we have messages about this book. Um
Exciting.
uh this is not a new feeling. In fact, it's too familiar. This deep-seated dizziness. I fucked that up a bit. But yeah, this deep-seated dizziness. I really like that quote because I was like, that's the part, the pattern recognition when you're in a toxic relationship. But describing it as deep-seated dizziness is so accurate when you think about it. It's like that whirlwind, it's that disconnected feeling from your body and just like feeling just off kilter all the time.
Mhm.
That's why I really like that quote.
I think that's like love. Like sometimes, especially toxic love, because this whole story is just about toxic love. Like toxic love always just has that off-putting feeling, but there's something in you that's like, "Oh, well, it feels uncomfortable, but, like, this is what love is supposed to be." And
Yeah.
you, like, ignore the signs. Like, that feeling to me was very reminiscent of not not the healthy kind of love, but maybe the love that's sometimes shown a lot in the media in general,
Mhm.
because you
Yeah,
don't see that.
I think too, like, I know I've experienced, like, when you're in an unhealthy relationship and, like, it probably starts out in, like, the negative patterns in ways that you can see and recognize initially, and you're like, "Hey, like, don't love that," but, like, you kinda keep it rolling, but I think over time, it progresses and people become more used to it to a degree that, like, they're so disoriented that, like, you kind of lose objectivity around, like, who is right and who is wrong, and, like, is
Mhm.
this unhealthy? Because your perception can become just warped over time from, like, the rationalization and, like, justification and minimization of all of these things that are happening, and, like, that to me felt like this deep, like, destabilization of reality. Like, I don't know if you've ever found yourself in a position where you're, like, talking with your friends while you're in an unhealthy relationship, and you, like, will realize in the middle of talking that, like, if I say these words out of my mouth, like, they're
Mhm.
gonna look at me like I have completely lost the plot because they are not inside of this weird world that you and your partner have created, you
Yeah.
know? And, like, from the outside, it's not justifiable, but when you stay in it so long, like, it gets normalized in this weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've 100% been there. Um, I've oof. I've been in a 8-year long one, and it was the craziest mind-altering thing I've ever experienced in my life, and you just sit there and you're like, "Am I crazy? Am I right? Am I wrong? Are they right? Like, what's it's I there are literally no I mean, you, I think, described it in the overtly kind of thriller, twisted kind of way that made it very theatrical, but making it very theatrical also made it feel very real in the same time. It felt like a justification of your feelings because that is how you feel. You start to feel like you're living in a different world, you know? And I think that that was, to me, one of the most beautiful things about this book was how even though it was so unrealistic, it was so realistic.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's exactly was my intention, so it feels really good to hear you say that.
Okay, one more quote, and then Blake and I will tell you everything so that we can yell at you. Um, um, well, I guess, okay, technically two quotes, but I'll read them right after one another. So the first one is Alison Bryn needed a love seat, and so a love seat appeared to meet the need. Um, wow. So, okay, I'll just read the second one. Then golden eyes stare into Johnny's as Alice says, I should have left you at the cafe. It was a mistake to try again. So the first one with the love seat, I took that as it when you have this perception of someone else and you're idolizing them, that the situations that work out for them, they just work out and as they should be. And your situation with them never pans out. And you're jealous about the fact that they want this, so therefore it exists and it works for them. And
Mhm.
it- to me, I felt that jealousy and resentment from Johnny in that first quote. And then the second one, golden eyes, you were talking about Alice's eyes and her eye color the whole time. And that was the first time you referred to them as golden. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing, right? And then the whole thing happens. I was like, oh shit. That's what's happening.
Yeah, bigger changes afoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to go back to to the first caption, what you were saying, this is why Johnny's the problem. I'm standing by this 10 toes down. This is why Johnny's the problem. Because, once again, it's about like your perception of your partner, right? And if your perception of your partner is seated and rooted in jealousy, you, regardless of what the other person is doing, you in fact are the problem as well. If you can't, I'm a podcast junkie. I love podcasts. I have different podcasts. And on one of the first episodes of one of my new ones, I had my friend who is polyamorous with her partner, and they talked about compersion and how you have that feeling of being happy for your partner or regardless. And I think that compersion isn't just a thing that happens in polyamorous relationship. I think it's a thing that needs to happen in all functional, healthy relationships. And I think that that's a thing that, to me, Johnny lacked a lot. And like that, the what you were saying, um, was so true about, the jealousy and everything, and how when you're in a relationship and you look at the other person and they just seem to magically be able to have all of the things that you want or you wish, and it just seems to work really easy for them. That's you putting your insecurities on another person.
Mhm.
And to me, that's also not okay. Like, not okay. And then to the other one of like when I should have left her at the cafe guffawed at the end, because you were never gonna do that.
Mhm.
Ma'am, you're
Mhm.
in this loop. You were never going to do that. You can think it all you want. That's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah. Well, can we get into it a little bit?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, let's go
I
for it.
I love that you're saying Johnny's a problem because I think Johnny is absolutely a problem. I think they're both damaged. I prefer stories where, like, both characters are flawed, both the
Mhm.
protagonist and the antagonist. I don't like when the protagonist's primary flaw is like, "But she was too giving, and, it got in the way." Like, no, like, I want very real, and the book doesn't lead with this, and in fact, only kind of slips it in,
Mhm.
in certain moments, but, like, we must remember that Johnny was absolutely stalking and intending to murder Alice, right?
Yes!
So, like,
Yes.
um,
The
Can we
whole
talk
time.
about this? Can we talk
so
about this?
yeah, like,
The
Johnny
whole
is
time.
deeply, deeply damaged, and Alice is also deeply damaged in a different way, and, like, with her sort of narcissistic traits, her, emotionally avoidant traits, that's something that I think is very familiar to a lot of people that have tried to be in relationship with people that have those traits, and they can cause a lot of pain. So I think naturally more people will sort of empathize with Johnny than with Alice, but I think you're absolutely right. Like they're both awful. Like
And they're both so awful. I think that for me, and this is just like maybe my experience, because I would probably be more of a Johnny than an Alice for sure, right? But like in my own journey through therapy and everything, is recognizing where I was the fuck up, where I was the
Right.
problem, And I think that that's why, to me, I feel like Johnny is more the problem than Alice, because we are all flawed human beings. That part is fair, right? It's very clear that Alice isn't changing, right? Even after you pick her up from a cafe where she's with another woman, like that part, that
Mhm.
the woman is jealous as she looks at Johnny. And then Alice says something to, like, calm her down, and then she feels okay, and it gives a little peck, and then you immediately go to her house where she leads you into this game, but she's leading you into this game because even with the narrator says, "Johnny knows what's happening. This is what Alice does all the time." And then you decide not to leave, you get into bed, and then you make all these promises, and you know who she is because you just saw her with another girl, but then you get mad when her phone is buzzing and you're like, "Is it the other girl from the other night?" Yes, it's the other girl from the other night because she was with her in front of your face.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sorry. It was like, maybe it's more personal to me and my own experiences, but like that part, and it's funny because I feel like the title "I Can Fix Her," people are gonna probably take that as like fixing Alice, but I've took it as like I can fix, like, Johnny from the one narrating watching can fix Johnny now.
Right.
Mhm.
Let's get into that. So the book starts off, and one of the very first things Ray does something really interesting that certain parts are bolded in the text
Mhm.
that to separate Johnny's narration from who we find out to be is other Johnny's narration. And Johnny is in a cyclical pattern of essentially like reliving the same situation over and over again with Alice. What we find out at the very end is that the Johnny that remembers is the one that is like this omniscient presence having to watch herself make the same mistakes over and over again. And the Johnny that doesn't remember is back there trying again, and they swap positions every time.
Yeah. It was cool
I
that there
hate
was, like
it. I hate it.
I loved
I
it.
hate it so much.
That part was what I loved so, so much, and it was so cute for Johnny living and we're gonna like living Johnny and an omnipotent Johnny are gonna be how I kind of refer to them. It was so interesting for living Johnny to talk to omnipotent Johnny and be like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, we're gonna leave her in the past. I don't want to deal with this pain anymore. And as soon as she's like, are you sure? All right, we're walking up to the door. And then living Johnny goes, "Sigh."
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was that part was so crazy to me. I was just like, wow, this was I'm a middle book struggler. I'm always a middle book struggler. So I like the middle of it, I was like, I don't know. And then I got past that one chapter and then to the next chapter, I was like, oh my gosh. Ripping. I was like, I'm just gonna read. I also almost finished at midnight. I was like, I'm just gonna read another chapter. Right? Next thing I know,
I'm glad.
what's happening?
Yeah.
What's happening? What's happening?
I think once you get to Thursday, it's pretty much a coast to the end. I'm
Because
wondering
no,
if that's where
right?
it
Because
got you.
so that is another thing about this book is that it's the chapters are the days of the week and it follows kind of like a week cycle. For me, because Thursday is when like the water is happening
Thursday is the dinner with Bryn.
and Friday is the water happening thing.
Yes. Mhm.
Thursday, I was totally in there. The water happening thing, and this is a neurodivergent me thing, like, sometimes when things are super descriptive, my brain just, like, shuts down and I can't visualize it. That was the hardest one for me. Um, and that was a point where I was like, "I don't know. I need to, like my brain needs a break." And then I loved but then, like, the end of Thursday where Alice attacks Johnny, I was like, "I'm in. I'm back in."
You're like, I'm in. Violence, I'm in.
I'm in again. I honestly, Violence I'm in should be like if I ever do another podcast,
Violence, I'm in. Yeah.
Violence
I
I'm in.
so I'm gonna explain my overall feelings for this book. And sort of the synopsis. I hated it because I loved it, and I hated it because I was both Alice and Johnny. Um,
Mhm.
and it's actually funny that Blake, you say you resonated more with Johnny, and that's why you hate her, because I feel like I resonated more with Alice for a lot of my
Oh,
life. I was like, it's not my business if you don't like it, whatever. I'm just gonna do my thing. And that's why I hate Alice more, because I'm like, you devious little bitch, you just like me. I see you. Um,
still seeing.
but so this book really like I feel like toxic love doesn't even do it justice, because it's more of an exploration of trauma and the lengths that our mind goes to negate facts to see what we want to see.
Mhm.
And limerence is a big word that I kept thinking of during this book. There was a lot of limerence going on that Johnny was like, basically, what Johnny thinks is reality. I thought that was the limerence where she's like, "Well, the dog changed." And to me, I was like, "Oh, this is Johnny believing the life should be this way. So Johnny wants it to be the truth, and Johnny wants this to be actuality." Um,
Mhm.
and so the book explores deeper between Johnny and Alice, who had broken up before, countless times before, as we know. There are these small instances of grief, I would say, with Johnny, since Johnny's perspective is the one that we see. There was this one part in the book that really like moved me and I feel like is a great like encapsulation, at least for me, for the book. Johnny is getting the glass of water for Alice. And when that happens, Johnny grabs the ice before the glass, and then she can't find a glass, and then the ice melts in her hand, and then she's in pain from the ice, and she's confused, and then the scene continues and no one addresses that Johnny was just holding a handful of ice the whole time waiting for a glass.
Which is, like,
And
crazy. Who keeps cold ice in their hand?
Who? Who does that? Who sees the same person over and over again?
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, it's really a distillation of, like, she has these, like, supposedly enormous feelings for this person and doesn't
Mhm.
even know which cabinet her glasses are in, you know? So it's kind of, like, pointing out, like, that obsession, that kind of limerence, like, it's so disconnected from reality, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love your use of, like, metaphors and analogies, and just your prose is beautiful in
I
this
was gonna
book.
say
So
the pros, if I from my own, because I'm a journaler and I have it in my journal, like a cute little Polaroid of the book or whatever, and I one of my favorite things was I love a good prose. I love books that feel like art while you read them sometimes, you know what I mean? And that kind of have, like, a beautiful, I don't wanna say, like, mouthfeel because 'cause you're not saying it out loud, but, like, a thought feel, like flowers blooming in your
Same
brain.
way, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Our Lives Under the Sea comes to mind. That
mm,
one really does it for me in that way.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
do have questions. Just
Yeah, please.
questions, but questions of and just, like, thought questions. And I know that some things were I know that everything was intentional, and I clearly didn't get some of it, which I'm totally okay with, like, my brain doesn't work that way all the time. So I had some questions about choices that happened in the book. And again, my first one is going to that the water scene and her turning into this octopus, which now my brain just related funny, like, sea hag kind of vibes in my head now. But what was the purpose? I don't wanna say that in a mean way, but, like, the intention behind that.
Yeah. So, for anyone listening who hasn't read it or doesn't know, the way it progresses is each day things change more and more in the environment. And there are repeated things in each scene, but they are changing. For example, the dog is like a small dog, then the next day it's bigger, then it turns into this like dragon thing, it flies away, then it comes back as this sort of like sea creature. But the weather changes are all sort of connected. So if you remember, there's one of the early days Johnny wakes up, she's cold because she doesn't have a blanket around her, and then the weather is cold, so they build a fire, and then
Mhm.
because
Like,
of the
inside.
fire, it is melting the ice, which in super surreal fashion causes this massive, tidal flood outside, which sort of, like, brings the ocean to their window.
I thought it was so cool, and it to me, when you describe it that way, like, because the day before, it was like this huge, like, snowstorm, and it was weird because, like, Alice had a friend come over and she was like, "How did you get here in this crazy snowstorm?" And then from what you're saying about they had the huge fire and then a fire melted the snow, it to me, it makes me think of, like, extremes or the whole "I can fix her" thing, like, okay, I'm frigidly cold. Think about, like, in relationships where you feel very distant from your partner, and then you maybe you communicated with your partner, and then the next thing they do is almost burn you with, like, attention, and then that creates a whole new problem setting, and it's you can never get, like, at an even keel place, it's always just catastrophic.
Yeah, and I really wanted it to work on sort of the same logic that dreams work on,
Mhm.
where, like, when you try to convey it the next day, it obviously doesn't make any sense, but in the moment when you're in the dream, you're just kind of like, "Yes, of course, because we lit this fireplace in the apartment, it melted all the blizzard snow outside, and there's, like, a huge, you know, devastating flood now." You know what I mean? Like, so, like, there is logic, but it is sort of dream, and I think, you know, I don't necessarily, like, need everyone to, like, you know,
Mhm.
notice those things. Like, I enjoyed doing it because it was fun for me, but I also don't think it's, like, essential to have fun with the book, to look at it and be like, "Oh, okay, I think this is this," and, you know, you have the Charlie Day meme with, like, the thing behind him with all the strings and the push pins. Like, you don't have to do that.
My question for you, Ray, is for two parts. What inspired you to write the book? And was there ever an idea in your head for the story that changed?
That's a great question. So, what inspired me to write the book was I had written about these characters are characters similar to these characters in a whole bunch of short stories. I really wanted to give them an ending. Um and I wanted, so I wanted to write them an ending essentially going into it. And then really in terms of like what their ending ultimately is, like, I don't know if you ever read No Exit, the play from Jean-Paul Sartre. He's French. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
I know
he's
exactly
sort
who
of
you're talking about.
okay, well, he's sort of with No Exit says that hell is other people. Like, to be in hell is to be, like, with other people. And I think, like, the thesis of this book or, like, what I thought about when I thought about, like, what would be, like, the ultimate hell for me personally, what I came
Mhm.
up with was reliving this most traumatic relationship dynamic of my life over and over, and not only just reliving it, but also having to watch myself relive it, because I think when you're in the moment, you're justifying things in your head. You, speaking for myself, have all this delusional hope that it's going to work out different this time. So it's not necessarily as much suffering as it is when you have the hindsight also to like
Mhm.
understand the consequences of the foolish decisions that you're making. So my take on hell is other people would be hell is having to make the same really painful mistakes over and over again and having to watch yourself make the same painful mistakes over and over again. So to me, like this really is less about their relationship and more of kind of like a vision of my own personal health.
I think
It's my dog
Oh,
being very quiet.
hello.
Sorry about him.
Does
I
he is he a huge monster? Or should
He
we be
is, yes.
my mom used to say so I was in a relationship. I affectionately, non-affectionately refer to him as lying, cheating ex. We're cool-ish now, like, I'll check it. We were high school sweeties, you know? Um, and my mom would always say every time a girl, because they were, like, full-fledged relationships, they weren't just, like, one-offs. Every time a girl would come with some more drama on social media, and I truly lived a hellscape kind of in that time. She would say, "It's like every time you get back with him, you hold your breath. And then when he inevitably does something that hurts you, you breathe again because you're holding your breath hoping that but knowing you're holding your breath hoping but knowing that it's never gonna change. And then when it doesn't change, you almost breathe because you're like, "Oh, this is a confirmation of that feeling." And I agree. I think that, like, having lived it, that is one of the most hellish things I've ever gone through in my life. It was something that tore me away from who I am as a person. I had to spend years, I would say almost a decade, rebuilding and re-understanding who I was and what my identity was. From that, I mean, I had friends who were so mad because this person I was with since I was 15, they similar to Johnny, they become like Johnny's whole world, right? Johnny's whole world in this story is Alice. That's the kind of loop that Johnny is in. Like Johnny's world starts, ends, and begins. And even when you get to the last part where Alice becomes this like goddess level creature, which is crazy and insane. And I hope that we get to talk about that, but it also kind of represents this weird pedestal situation that Johnny puts Alice on. Only then does Johnny's world crumble. And that, when even though Alice bites Johnny in the neck, which was like, sorry, I was so silly. It was like, oh, she feels sad about doing it, but she's doing it anyways. And then Johnny, makes her murderous intent final. And then still Johnny's holding on to Alice after he's hurt her, after she's hurt her tremendously. And it is very reminiscent of, like, Alice is it, and that's why no matter what, Johnny stays in this loop,
Mhm.
and
Yeah. And, like, I wanted to circle back too to what you said about, like, that Johnny's the problem, and, like, I think that's really empowering. Like, I think there's a way to look at this story and say that this is a really hopeless story. I don't think it is. I
Mhm,
think, like, what I would like people to take from it if they can is that, like, if you can see the role that you play in things, then you are empowered to change them. You
mhm,
know what I mean? Like, I when I, speaking for myself, have adopted a victim mentality,
mhm,
even if what someone else did was egregious, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean I'm responsible for all of it, but if I can see how I got into that situation, what
mhm.
character defects in me or insecurities in me, whatever, drove me to participate in something like that,
Yeah,
then I can move on and change and not repeat those same mistakes all over again.
yeah.
So, I think that is sort of the hope is that, like, if a person is willing to take a look at, like, how did I get here and make sure that I don't get here again, you know, now we're cooking. Now, like, that's the growth, you know?
Now we're cooking. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that that is how I felt, right? Like, I've been a victim to a lot of situations, whether they were relationships or they were friendships. And one of the things that I had to learn through working through healing and working through therapy is like, I had control in that situation. You know, you feel like you don't have control. And that's, all of the things that are going on in your brain, but I always had control. And my part to play in all of that was that I didn't leave, or I didn't say no, or I didn't say that this wasn't okay, and I let these people do these things to me, which is stupid. To me, stupid in a sense that, like, we exist in this world that tells us that we have to allow people to treat us a certain way, and that's just not true,
Mhm.
and I think that that is one of the reasons that I really love the book in the end and was like, "This is so immensely powerful," and I hope more people read this and and get it, right? Like, yeah, Alice sucks. There's so many people in this world that suck. Like, you're never gonna get around away from sucky people, like, that's just never gonna happen, but you have the choice about what people you spend time with and what people you don't spend time with. And if you're choosing to spend time around people who suck, then you kind of suck too.
Or at least there are changes you can make to have less of those experiences.
Yeah.
I think, like, what I've ultimately figured out for myself in my own life is that, like, well, I can fix her like me, like, I can fix her, and
Mhm.
that's the
Mhm.
only one, yeah,
Yeah.
and, like,
Yeah.
I'm like you, like, in that, like, I've stayed too long. I would love for any especially woman listening to this to hear, no one is coming to give you a trophy for enduring years of poor treatment from your partner. There are no awards for that. You don't win any big prize for sticking it out. You know,
Mm-mm.
like, I think our culture puts a lot of pressure and expectation on women especially to, like, if you're married, like, "Well, you made a vow, like, you should be ride or die. You should," whatever, all the, like, phrases that we have around that kind of behavior when the reality is, like, no one's gonna give you a standing ovation at the end of your life for never having gotten divorced. Or, like, you know what I mean?
That yeah. Yeah.
Even when you're like when people are saying, I stayed for the kids, your kids aren't gonna give you a standing ovation. I mean, like, they may years, decades, maybe even come to understand and appreciate some of what you've done, but there is still a bigger part of them that's gonna be like, "It would've been better if you left."
Um, okay, so moving on to the next part of the book, the a big change happens, a huge change. So as Ray explained, and we've all sort of hinted at, there are these small transitions and changes through the scenery as you go on. Some bigger than others. And then Alice confronts Johnny about the fact that Johnny was trying to kill her the entire time, and that Johnny had a bag of rope, duct tape, something else. What else was in the
But wait,
bag?
wait, before we get to that one, I don't mean to cut you off because I think that there was, like, one big thing right before that because the rope came after, to me, Alice made her, like, really big beast kind of change. I think if we could talk
Wait, did
about
the
right
rope
before that.
come after the beast change?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, it's all the
I think the
timeline in my
first
brain.
I think the first one that, like, the to me, was, like, the changes went from kinda being kinda, like, small and more, necessary, like, they were like, "Oh, it's cold, we'll get a fire in the middle house," you know, what kind of thing that think changes that you just happen to acclimate to the environment was when Johnny poisoned her friend.
Bryn. Bryn, I was just about to say Bryn is dead on the floor from a peanut allergy. Um, Johnny claims to say she didn't know how it happened, but
That was, by the way, that was my first
oh,
indication that Johnny was a little bit more nefarious than she was trying to, like, present. I mean, because, she was talking about it almost gave me, like, serial killer blackout lapses where she was describing, like, "I don't know how to make this meal, but suddenly the meal is made." And in one ends, it feels, similar to all the changes that have been happening in the house where whatever they need is there. But in another sense, it kind of felt like there were just periods where she was just blacking out, especially because she kept focusing on Bren and Alice's friendship.
Mhm. I think too, like, I've definitely experienced a sense of, like, again, when I think about, like, a nightmare, it's almost like I'm only going to give you the experiences of the worst parts of this. So, like, the stress of having an unexpected guest, the stress of being expected to cook a meal that you don't know how to cook, you don't know where anything is. Then you don't get any of, like, the small victories of figuring out actually cooking this meal. When you look up, the table's already set and all this food that now you're confused and frustrated, like, how did this even happen? I don't even they're engaged in this conversation that you're not a part of. They have these inside jokes. They're talking about these memories they share that you don't remember. So it's like all she gets is like the most stressful slices
yeah,
of what's happening.
yeah. And Ray, I would like it if you would explain to everybody what happens with this transformation.
Oh,
It the
so
yes,
with Alice, do you mean?
yes, yes, with Alice.
Yeah, so we see in Alice's apartment that she has, a jaguar blanket at one point, then that sort of turns into, like, a real fur at another point,
Mhm.
and, ultimately after this scene so Bryn dies, right, of this peanut allergy. She's on the floor. Now it's the 2 of them, and they really start to call each other out because I think their conflicts have just been sort of simmering,
Mhm.
between the 2 of them, and Alice is finally reading Johnny her rights, right? Like, "You're obsessed with me. It's weird. You killed her. Like, why would you like, you're crazy." You know what I mean? Like, they're really putting it on the table, and
Mhm.
in sort of putting it all on the table, Alice's viciousness is on full display, and she becomes the jaguar that we have seen. So it's just sort of, again, like I think, like we talked about earlier, a lot of this book is trying to externalize everything that happens on the inside when you're in these situations and like how it feels to you and how it can feel like someone is going for your throat and like literally ripping your throat out when they decide to turn it all on and you really, get into it. So yeah, I think it's another place in the book where how it feels is just materialized in the physical world on the page, and in this case, it's Alice actually turning into a predator, which she has
Yeah,
always been, right? She's been
right.
predatory in a number of other ways this whole time, not that Johnny isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was so interesting to read because, especially when you know that Johnny was planning to kill Alice the whole time. For Alice to be this apex predator to Johnny in this moment because of, yeah, that ferocity going for your throat and whatnot was really interesting because Alice's whole thing for a lot of the book was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's fine. It's cool. I'm chill and I'm a cool girl. I go with the vibe and this is all fine, whatever. And then she turns into this jaguar that's like this apex predator that is like the top dog that is um just very deadly and was hiding beneath her skin the whole time. And that's the first instance that it's like just full in front of you um for it. So yeah, that was really interesting.
I saw it as like a protection mechanism, right? It's almost like Alice was kind of like a bitch, right? Um, but sometimes people are, I mean, I'm saying, but sometimes people are that way to protect themselves. And I think that in the full scheme of things, you find out that Alice knew the entire time that Johnny was trying to kill her, but she still kept Johnny there, which is indicative of her own thing. But only, maybe in Alice's own world, she explained away. Oh, well, it's just, rope. Maybe there's another reason and blah, 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 blah. And then when her friend is dead and they're really having it out, it's almost as if she, like you said, Kathleen, like she switched from being the cool girl to the predator. And to me, that was, I mean, I think both of them are protection mechanisms, but I think like the jaguar is like that part of us that we hide deep inside of ourselves that only comes out when we actually really truly feel that we are in danger. And I think that for all of Alice's problems, her biggest issue is that she thinks that she can treat people however she wants to, and there is no real consequence for it. And as soon as there was, she became really fearful and turned into the monster before the monster could turn on her. And it's even like the being a cool girl. Being a cool girl is just basically trying to one up someone, right? So if someone says something to you, you're just like, I could care less. Like who cares, that in itself is a um defense mechanism, and I think like the jaguar, just the step up from it. Alice is always trying to be and get ahead of someone before they can actually hurt her, which is probably why she sleeps around with a lot of women and she does what she does and she lies and everything like that, because her biggest, I
Leaves
mean,
moves to a different country.
she moves to
Yeah.
flight or flight, right? But her biggest fear is, not having someone, being rejected. And so she does whatever it takes to be the one that does the rejecting.
So with that then, Ray, how in the fuck did you come up? Did you create what happens next in the story? I was reading it and I genuinely, like, we're all authors, we're all writers. But I was reading it and I was genuinely like, I don't think I'm creative enough to come up with this the way that you described it. So right. So Johnny and Alice get in about it, and Alice is like, "You were planning to kill me. You had a bag with duct tape and rope in it." And then Johnny in her inner monologue goes, "Oh, does she know about these other girls? Does she know about the other stalking and the other whatever?" Um, and then from that, everything just unfolds and collapses within itself. When you, at the point, describe the flesh bone wings? How do we describe this? What? How are we describing this?
They're sort of, I guess they're like bat-like wings that
Okay. Okay.
erupt, out of Alice's back as she kind of starts to merge with this. I mean, the dog at this point is some kind of eldritch being that is kind of
Right.
pouring into her. They're kind of merging into
Yeah.
one nightmare, demonic. We don't know what she is. Yeah.
Angel
How did you
demonic.
come up with that? How did you come up with that? Like genuinely, like it was so beautifully the way you did it. I think a lot of times when people describe those horror type elements, it can feel repetitive of another thing. But the way that you described it felt so on tone with the rest of the book, and also my flabbers were gasted.
My
Thank
flabbers were
you.
gasted.
I mean, I guess I just thought about all of this as, like, everyone just becoming what they always were. just in more and more obvious ways. So that was sort of my mindset because you're kind of talking about the actual writing process is that like it was always going to go this way. Like of course it always happened to happen to unfold this way. And I my preference in writing the grotesque is to there's a certain way that people tend to write horror descriptions, and there's a
Mhm.
certain way that people tend to write erotic descriptions. I tend to use the style that I would use for erotic descriptions in describing horror. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me.
That's no, that's so that makes a lot of sense, and that's so interesting.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know if it
That's
reads that way, but, like, that's sort of how I think of it. I do think of horrors in a similar way that I approach writing eroticism.
now that you say that, when I'm thinking back to it, especially within like the last scenes of the book, um, it's clearly horror, but when you say that you're writing it in the sense of erotica, for me, erotica writing is focused on the reflection of what's happening, I would say. So it's like this is happening, but this is the reflection of it and how it's appearing and feeling and all that type of stuff. And I feel like horror a lot of time is like, um, I'm either going to describe the thing exactly in front of me or exactly how it's feeling in my body. And your writing is very like, I'm going to put a mirror in front of this giant beast and I'm going to describe what the mirror is happening. Does that make sense to anyone? Maybe it doesn't.
I
But
love
I feel
that.
like
That's great. Mhm.
but that's how it felt when you were describing it, that it was something that was very particular and also so, moving and did not feel like at that point it was happening to Johnny or Alice. It was just like, "Here's this thing, you now are forced to experience it." And sit through this. And that was a really oh, yeah, that's why I had to finish the book because I was reading through it and I was, like, uncomfortable. My shoulders were, like, scrunched, my jaw was tightened because I was uncomfortable with everything it represented and the way that you did it. You slipped it in there for us, like, you drew me in and you made me trust you, and then you were like, "Ha, just kidding." Yeah, so that's but, yeah, I have to give you props with that writing because it was beautifully done. Like, in my opinion, it was beautifully done. And the transition, if people enjoy books that uh, really like the pacing was phenomenal for this book. It is, would you say a
Mhm.
novella?
Thank you.
The novella?
They call it a short novel just for, like, whatever, distribution reasons, but it's about 100 pages for anyone curious the actual length, yeah.
Yeah. And so so a short novel, 100 pages, but the pacing and everything in it is so useful to the story. And then um, I also didn't know this. I don't know if this is a thing within the physical copy, but I got another story at the end, a short story.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
there.
yes. Did you read that too, Blake?
No.
Okay.
No, not because I
That's
didn't
okay.
wanna read
That's okay.
it, but because it caught me, like, I said I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna read one more chapter,"
You were
and
tired.
I had already taken, like, my, like, sleep pill,
Oh, I get
and then
it.
I was fighting
You were
against my
done.
sleep
Yeah.
pill because I was like, "There's no way that I'm not finishing." Like, I need yeah, I wasn't yeah. I was like, "No, no, no, we're finishing this." Like, my answers need to be answered. My questions need to be answered. So I didn't get to it, and that a part of it is also because I'm so behind on book reading because I'm also in, like, a book club, and we meet up this Wednesday, and I'm probably 40 pages into this. So I'm like, "Okay, all right, that book's done, on to the next book, gotta keep moving." It's been a crazy book experience for me. But I fully intend to go back. I intend it to be how when you finish a book and you're, like, living in that book world and you don't know how to get out of it yet?
Mhm.
Want the
That's your
little
book.
short part of that to
Definitely.
be, like, my lead out of the whatever. Because 'cause you don't really wanna be fully invested in another world yet, but that doesn't mean you wanna stop reading.
Mhm.
And so
Totally.
I plan for that to be, like, my little
The
yeah.
So
exit, yeah.
I want to say this, and then I want to give the floor to Ray for a lot of it. So this Ray has how many books would you do you have published under Ray Wilde, and then you have Ray Knowles as well
Yeah, I have books published under both names.
under both. Yeah.
I think they're somewhere between 5 and 7. I don't know. That's
Okay. Yeah,
bad. I should know
that's
that.
okay. That's okay. So yeah, so Ray has a variety of books, sapphic horror, all within that genre, toxic love and whatnot. Um, for me, I Can Fix Her was and we don't need to give a rating, but I'll gladly do it because I posted the rating on Goodreads as well. I gave I Can Fix Her 5 stars. It was very reminiscent. So if people like the short story Yellow Wallpaper, if you like that unnerving ability of it, if you were severely uncomfortable with the movie Mother, that drew the exact same feelings from that book for me.
That's
Yep.
the one I have talked about on other podcasts where I'm like,
Really?
if Mother was the most uncomfortable thing you've ever sat through, you might also enjoy the discomfort of I Can Fix Her.
Yes, that's the same thing. Like, I don't know, and like, you can speak after this about how you felt overall for it, but that was the main thing for I Can Fix Her, is that I was trapped in the book. I was trapped like Johnny was. I was trapped like
Mhm,
Alice was. It was such an unnerving and uncomfortable experience that I think readers need to have. I would recommend it to anyone who, especially if you haven't delved into sapphic and sapphic horror novels, I think this
mhm,
is a great one because it's short, it gets to the point, and it is a wild fucking ride.
mhm. It is.
Like,
And it has a very disgusting short story at the end, as you mentioned, Kimberly.
Okay, guys, now
you have to read it, Blake. You have to read it. I'm gonna give you. Can I give one hint?
just
Yeah, I mean, you can
yeah,
just say
I
the
love him.
title. That really.
Oh, let's pull up the title because I don't remember exactly the title,
I can
but
tell you.
what I yes, what's the title of it?
It's called Write My Eulogy on the Glory Hole Bathroom Stall.
No, I saw
Yes.
that, and that
Yep.
was the reason why I was like, I had a hold up. I had a moment when I was like, "You know
But
what?
just wait till you read it. Just
Oh
wait
my
till you
god."
read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Blake, I'll let you give your final thoughts, and then we'll have or yeah, and then we'll have Ray go ahead and talk about where we can buy her books, what's coming next, any details she can give us, and where to follow you.
Yeah, I think my final there were parts with it that and I just wanna be honest who I am. There are parts with it that were a little bit harder for me personally. I'm a person that third person is really hard for me. Um, just like repetition. So like you there's I wrote a third person just as like stretching my writing things and the repetition of names is just something that you cannot get out of because how you can only say she, her, they, we, so much. So that part was just a little hard, me brain wise. But I, th- the way that you tell the story is so beautiful. And I am always, whether my brain has an issue sometimes with how it correlates with the words and everything, the most important thing to me is always the message and the theme. And I think that the message and the theme in this book was well worth me getting past the one chapter. Uncomfortability would be the best word I could describe because when I got past that moment, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this book is genius." I thought it was beautifully written. I think that was one of the first notes I took in the book was how beautiful I thought it was written. I think that it was a story that, you know, it's so when it we were talking earlier about how sapphic and people automatically go to like the more pornographic kind of side of things or the more overly sexualized kind of things. It's a book that I would give a 15-year-old. It has a little bit of violence. There's a little bit of, sexual kind of mentions in it and everything, but it's not overt. And it's something that I would give to a 15-year-old or 16-year-old to be like, I need you to read this because one day, no matter who you like, who you love, what you represent, whatever, you might find yourself in this situation, and I hope that you'll be able to read this book and see it so that you don't get into a cycle that other people d I think it's, I'm listening to Gabrielle Union's, memoir, We're Gonna Need More Wine, and she was talking about how Judy Blume was such a big book for her Catholic Mormon community that she grew up in, and I think that this book, especially for girls, boys, whatever, growing up in this time period, I think that this book could be such an informative thing about toxic relationships and the real true damage, of them. We see toxic relationships on TV shows all the time, and it's just like, ha ha ha, this is silly. And you don't think about like how it can truly affect both of you. And I think that your story does a beautiful job of describing how terrible a toxic relationship is without ever having to call it toxic, without ever having to use the words that are usually used in traditional books that talk about it in a way that people can get it. And I think that that is one of the true beauties of this book. And I'm excited to read some of your writing because I have a feeling that that's probably one of the true beauties of your writing.
Oh, thank you. That means so much to me. Yeah, I and I love that you brought up. So this is very real. Anyone who's listening to this who's an author and you wanna write a sapphic, closed door, third person with only 2 characters, this was such a real challenge. She said 100 bajillion times, and it's not something I've even thought about. Like, I never really consider that too much, like, what point in
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell a story in. But this specific one where it's just 2 women in a room basically for the whole book, it's a very real challenge. So if anyone's thinking about doing, like, a closed door with just 2 women for an entire story, just know the word "she" and their names are gonna feel like the bane of your existence. That's very real.
It's I think that we all have I think there's always a word that author mine is "and." Someone called me out and said, "You use 'and' a lot in your book," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go through this entire copy again and just redo 'ands.'" But you're right, like, it's like, I always tell people, third person is so hard. Third person to make you feel connected to their characters is really hard. I think you did an amazing job with that, but there's a big challenge
Yeah,
with
and
that.
I don't usually struggle with, like, third person in general, but
Mhm.
just this particular situation where there are no male characters, there's really no other characters except the one scene with Bren. It's just the she's were a very real challenge. Um,
More power to you, because
Thank you.
honestly, I couldn't as a writer, I couldn't do it, and I think it's amazing that you did it in a way that I still was like, "I gotta finish the book."
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Um,
Ray, where can we find you? What's coming next? Everything about you and
Yeah.
your writing.
So I would say you can get my books wherever you buy books.
Mhm.
If you read I Can Fix Her and you enjoyed the toxic relationship part of it, I have a book under my other pen name called Rae Knowles that you'll probably also really enjoy called Merciless Waters. It's a very similar relationship dynamic.
This down right now.
It's cool, and it's sapphic women on a pirate ship, which is fun with some like folk magic. So there's that. I can't quite announce it yet. Probably by the time this is out, I will have announced it on my social media, but there is news coming about my collection called I Do Not Apologize for My Position on Men. It was in print
I've read
only.
it. What?
Yeah, I know. It was in print for 5 months and then the publisher shut down, which is such a bummer. So it's been out of print for quite a while, but there is exciting news coming with
Mhm.
that one. And
Yay.
probably the biggest, not probably, absolutely the biggest news of my author career is also loading. This industry is
Saw those.
glacially slow. So I do not know when I'll be able to actually announce it. But if you are a girly who likes sapphic books, it will probably interest you when it comes around. And I'm on Instagram and TikTok mostly at
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know we were all over the place, And I'm sorry if I didn't let you speak as much as you can, but we'll gladly have you on for any book that you write from now on, so we
Oh,
can
well, thank you.
yap
And no,
about it.
you're both amazing. And again, truly so honored to be your very first guest. And thank you so much for taking the time to read it. And I'll just say to anyone listening, it's certainly not a book for everybody, but if it sounds like it's something that might be for you, it's probably very for you because I think it's written for a pretty niche audience.
Yeah. Which I love more than if I could make a final note, as an author, it's hard because you especially as an indie author, you wanna, like, bring in as many people as you can, and then kind of having the idea, like, "Who cares? I'm gonna write for whatever audience I wanna write," is a badass powerhouse author move,
Thank
and
you.
I think that that is amazing and inspiring.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Totally agree. I'm not trying to make everyone happy. I'm trying to make 4 people happy, you know?
As you should, as you should. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, if you're watching this video on YouTube, you'll be able to find Ray's socials down below so that you can click her links and go follow her. She also has a website. Um, and yeah, buy her books. They're on Amazon, they're all over the place. You can read them on Kindle as well, just as I did. And yeah, Ray, oh, follow her on social media, please.
Mhm,
I need more people to talk about it because
mhm.
there's just so much going on there that every time Ray's posts come up, I'm like, I need to see it. What is happening now?
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, everyone read I Can Fix Her.